affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
I'm Casey Wannenberg. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on this week's Inside KELOLAND, this Friday is International Women's Day. To honor the women of South Dakota, KELOLAND News will air a special program called Celebrating Women. In a few minutes, we'll preview one of our stories. Plus, we may be in the middle of winter, but progress is being made on an outdoor concert venue in Sioux Falls. We get an update on the Levitt at the Falls project and when you can start enjoying some outdoor music. But first, in just a few days, Sioux Falls will become a hub for college basketball. 16 men's and women's teams from across the Midwest will battle it out on the court at the Denny Sanford Premier Center for the Summit League Championships. It's set to be an exciting weekend of basketball that all kicks off on Saturday. Joining us now is Ryan Powell from the Summit League. Thanks for joining us, Ryan.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So for fans who have been to the Summit League tournament before in the past, what may be different this year?
So one thing is the University of North Dakota has been joined to the league, so we have 9 teams, but only 8 make the tournament. So a lot of teams are jockeying for that final 8th spot this week. I know Western Illinois and Denver on the men's side are fighting it out, and Omaha and Purdue-Fort Wayne on the women's side are trying to get that final spot to get to Sioux Falls, because that's what you play for. You play to get to the tournament, to get to the NCAA tournament, to get the automatic bid. So. And
talking about getting into the tournament and then the next tournament,
right.
We have 2 very good women's teams this year, right?
Yeah, and they're both in the state of South Dakota. South Dakota State and South Dakota have both kind of been around that top 25 range. I know South Dakota made it into the top 25 for the first time this year in the women's side, and then they obviously had a game last Sunday at Frost Arena that went into overtime. South Dakota State ended up winning that one, so they kind of have a 1-game lead as far as being the regular season champion. But what's really going to matter is that tournament success and whether they can, they're going to be paired on opposite sides of the bracket. So if they win twice, they'll face off again on Tuesday in Sioux Falls. I know a lot of people are probably looking forward to that, but it's basketball, so anything can happen. But the interesting thing about those two is that they're both currently projected to be in the NCAA tournament regardless of, in the past there's usually just been the winner that gets in from the Summit League, but with their successes this year, they both won over 20 games, had long winning streaks, so they've really done a nice job, and they've set themselves up for that opportunity to, if things don't go their way in Sioux Falls on Tuesday, then maybe they get that at-large bid. So that would be exciting for our league, too.
So there are a certain number of at-large spots then?
Yeah, there's around 30, and there's around 32 conferences that get the automatic bid, and then there's 64 teams in the tournament. So there's around 31 and 32 at-large bids available as well.
So with that rivalry, we talked about UND being new to the league, so another team in the Dakotas. And then, of course, a lot of people talking about Mike Dahm at SDSU and how he scored 3,000 points.
Yeah, Mike Dahm he's really done some incredible things. He's top 10 all-time scorer in Division I history now. He just reached that last week in Frost, which was good for him to do at home in front of his fans, where he's been a 4-year player. I know after last year there's some talk whether he might go to the NBA or might grad transfer to another program, but he stayed at South Dakota State, and he's reaping the rewards, and the fans are reaping the rewards too. And the people in Sioux Falls, they've got to be excited to have a guy with his kind of stature and caliber come in to play in the tournament again for the 4th time. He's been the MVP the last 3 years, so he's got a good track record.
I can imagine you're hoping that these things we're talking about will draw more people to the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Saturday's kind of built to be. South Dakota State is already guaranteed one of the top 2 seeds. So they'll play on Saturday on the men's side and on the women's side. South Dakota and South Dakota State will both play. So Saturdays, for those first-round games is going to be exciting. And then South Dakota is actually still, on the men's side, is still kind of fighting to see if they're going to play on Saturday or Sunday. They can get as high as 5. If they get to 5, then they're going to play on Sunday. And then if they get to 7 or 8, then they'll play, maybe match up against South Dakota State on Saturday. So that would add some first-round intrigue, too.
And as we mentioned, you're with the Summit League.
Right.
You're at a temporary spot right now, but you will have a permanent spot.
We are. So
I
just moved to Sioux Falls in August from Grand Forks. So I have some University of North Dakota ties, and it's exciting for them to be able to get to Sioux Falls for the tournament. Side note, we were in Reno in the Big Sky tournament the last 6 years, so they've got the fans have an opportunity to get in their car and just drive down and make a weekend of it. But yeah, it's being in Sioux Falls, and the office was in Chicago for the last 10 years, or even more than that, I think. But so they've made the move. We're just a 9-man staff, so 3 of us made the move from Chicago. 6 of us are new to the staff, so we've kind of had a year of transition and getting used to each other. So that's been nice. And, you know, being in Sioux Falls now as opposed to Chicago, I couldn't relate to the 2, but the 3 that have been in Chicago that are now in Sioux Falls I think they're enjoying being here and being able to prepare a little more and get ahead of things for the tournament instead of getting here, you know, 3 or 4 days before it starts and scrambling around, right?
I can imagine that. Talk about preparing too. You guys have probably been preparing for this for months.
Yeah, and you know, you can't just start, you know, a week or 2 before, but it really cranks up. You know, mid-February is when the really kind of motion starts, and you know, there's so many logistics that go into this, to having team hosts for the 16 teams that come in, so they know where to go and what to do in Sioux Falls. You have to schedule the officials for the, you know, and then you have a side official, and then there's replay for the games. There's electronics, like, you know, the boards at the Premier
Things we don't
Center.
even
Yeah,
think of.
right. There's credentials. So that's my thing. I have over 250 credentials to make before next week, and I know KELOLAND's got a few people coming out to cover that, so that'll be exciting. And there's gift, you know, packets and things like that. There's rental cars that you have to schedule for the referees, for the coaches, there's just tournament, you know, dignitaries and things like that. So there's so much that goes into it, but it's fun. It's exciting. This is kind of what, you know, it's kind of slow, and then you get that intensity, and you're moving and shaking a lot during these next, you know, 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, good luck, and thanks for taking time to join us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
KELOLAND News is your home for everything Summit League. We'll bring you the highlights from each game and interviews with players all weekend long. You can find all of that on KELOLAND.com. Basketball fans are witnessing something special at South Dakota State this year. With more than 5,100 career points combined, Mike Daum and Macy Miller are the greatest male-female scoring duo in Division I history. KELOLAND's Matt Holson caught up with the 2 Jackrabbits to get their reaction.
They came in together, and they'll be going out together. This is the final season for seniors Mike Daum and Macy Miller at SDSU. They're each the all-time leading scorers for their respective programs.
With us combined, you know, people are saying, like, we're the highest scoring duo, men's and women's, in NCAA history right now, which is crazy to think about, just because I know the hard work that she's put in and the things that I've done, you know, when the light's not shining, just in the gym at dark, it just comes to show when the game starts.
Daum says if he could steal one thing from Miller's game, it would be the Mitchell native's mid-range jump shot.
She's a crafty player. I just love her. You know, she's super calm on the court. She gets emotional when she needs to, gets the crowd going, and she's just a great player.
What's your favorite part about his game?
He can score anywhere on the court. It's incredible. I love that about him. He can score in the post because he's so tall, and his arms are so long. He can get every rebound, and then he can shoot a deep 3. Like, it's so hard to guard him. So I'd say just his ability to score anywhere on the court.
Both have dreams of playing pro basketball. When the season ends for the men, Daum will be training for the next step in Arizona. Miller will also be active when the women wrap up.
I've gotten invited to a couple pro camps. I don't know if it's WNBA or overseas, wherever that takes me after college.
College careers that will leave a mark on the basketball programs at SDSU forever.
It's really sad, and as much as I talk about it, it goes really fast. And I'm excited to move on, but it's also the memories that I've had with my teammates. It's tough to move on, and the fan base that we've had, it's really cool.
In Brookings, Matt Holson, KELOLAND News.
Daum and Miller have been friends since they lived in the same apartment complex as freshmen. If you would like to see them play one last time, the Jackrabbits will be playing this weekend at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Still to come on Inside KELOLAND, we're giving you a taste of summer as we check in on the Levitt at the Falls project, when you can start jamming out to some good music next. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. January was a big month for a future Sioux Falls landmark. The roof of the Levitt at the Falls is taking shape in downtown Sioux Falls. Crews positioned the beams of the new landmark in January. The beam spans more than 78 feet and weighs, get this, 10,000 pounds. Once finished with the roof, the crew will start work on the interior of the stage. The first performers are scheduled to debut on June 14th. So much has happened since then, so joining me now are Roseanne Hoffland, the Director of Communications and Community Engagement, and Tom Eisner, the Director of Operations. So for those who aren't familiar with this project, tell me exactly what it is.
Well, Levitt at the Falls, we have a mission to build community through music. So we're actually part of a national foundation that works to do that all throughout the United States. We are one of 8 permanent shells that they're building in a space that's maybe an underutilized community space. And so as a part of a national process, for several years, the city and the Friends of Levitt have been working on creating this beautiful spot in Falls Park West, a state-of-the-art band shell where we will be having 30 free concerts this summer for the community to come out, get to know each other, and enjoy music.
I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, those 30 free concerts, do you guys know who's playing yet?
We're getting there. We've got offers out. I can tell you that it's going to be a very diverse group of musicians coming in, covering all various genres, whether it's bluegrass, folk, rock, country, reggae. So yeah, we've got a little bit of everything coming in our way. So
When do you expect to have some of those announcements?
Go ahead.
We're going to be doing our season announcement on May 9th. So stay posted, like our Facebook, go to our website to make sure that you know what all those acts are going to be.
In addition to the concerts, are there other activities going on out there?
Absolutely, yeah. We're working with different groups in the community to really activate the lawn to make sure it's a spot that's welcoming and exciting to be. Tom's working on the food and beverages too.
Correct. Yeah, we will be bringing food trucks for every one of the events that we hold. So families can come down. They can bring their children, bring people with them, and there'll be food and beverages available, and of course then the live music as well.
So it's family friendly then?
It's very
Absolutely.
family. Yeah.
What do you guys think is most exciting about Levitt at the Falls? What are you most excited for?
I love the fact that everyone in the community can come together in this space and experience the arts. We're going to be able to feature some of our wonderful local professional bands, regional bands, national bands that I think are really reflective of the diverse interests of our community. And so it's going to just be cool. It's going to be a place where you're going to meet someone that you don't know in the community, but you're going to be able to bond over this wonderful arts experience.
And yeah, being a fan of music and having worked with musicians for several years now, I just love having the opportunity of having a spot for them to come in and be able to showcase themselves in front of our community.
Do you guys know anything as far as the dates? There's going to be several a week, right, for concerts?
Yeah, we will begin our season on June 14th, and then we'll have concerts going all the way through August 10th. So there'll be 30 opportunities this summer to come out and experience the Levitt.
And a lot of that will be on the weekends, or as far as
every Thursday through Saturday. There's a couple of Wednesdays in that mix, and then several Sundays in that mix as well. Shows will take place from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. We encourage people to come down earlier. Like I said, we'll have the food trucks in there earlier as well. And then on Sundays, we're looking at a 5 to 7 time frame.
I know for a lot of construction companies, the wet summer last year and now all this snow has impacted them. Are you guys on schedule, or how's
Yes.
construction going?
Our construction crew is on track, so we are set to finish the shell in April. It's been some great additions in the last couple of weeks. We have a nice big screen, a Daktronics digital board that just got installed, and they're starting to work on the inside, the dressing rooms, the green rooms. You can see the beautiful top of the shell now if you stop by Falls Park West, so we're making good progress.
What do you think this will mean for downtown Sioux Falls?
Oh, I feel it's a great thing for the community to embrace. We're already starting to feel that from some of the local vendors in the area. It seems like there's more and more of that coming to that area, which is great because it's such a beautiful area of town. So,
Do you think this will draw people mainly from Sioux Falls, out of Sioux Falls, or what's the hope there?
I think it will be both. I think it's going to increase foot traffic in that part of downtown. I mean, our lawn can accommodate up to 5,000 people. And so I think that Sioux Falls is anxious for a place. We love to be outside in the summer, especially this time of year.
Yes,
We're all
right.
excited about that. But we're also working with CVB to get the word out there to surrounding communities. And I think some of the artists that we're bringing in will be a real draw for folks all over the region.
Can't wait. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
thank you.
Coming up after the break, she set many firsts for women in politics here in South Dakota and in Washington, D.C. but you may have never heard of her. We'll preview our upcoming Celebrating Women special next. Welcome back. This week, KELOLAND News will be honoring the women of South Dakota who are making history and paving the way for future generations. One of the women we'll be honoring set many firsts in politics, and KELOLAND's Kelly Volk is joining us now with a preview of her story about Gladys Pyle. So, Kelly, for those who aren't familiar with Gladys Pyle, who is she?
Well, she's a Huron native, lived there for most of her life. Lived to be 98 years old, so she had a long life. And she's known for really being a woman of first in many areas. Initially, the first woman to serve in the South Dakota legislature. She became Secretary of State for 4 years, I believe, somewhere around 4 years. She was also the first woman to be elected to the U.S. Senate without being previously appointed.
In the whole United States.
Right, yep, wow. Yep. So a lot of firsts and a lot of other work for her community and for the state, for the local church. She was very passionate about education, really a trailblazer.
You got to look at some old file footage for this story, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting to go back and listen to some of the interviews that we've done with her, because we interviewed her many times at her home and other places across the state.
I like that she lived to be 98, even though she probably had a stressful life.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I'm told she handled things very well. She was a very classy lady, and she didn't get too riled up over anything.
So what did you find most interesting about her story when you're doing this story?
Well, here's something that's really interesting. She comes from a family of leaders, and her mother was actually a leading suffragette in South Dakota. And she was instrumental in getting women in South Dakota the right to vote. Really? So, you know, it doesn't stop with Gladys. She had people before her really inspiring her to go these great distances. Okay. So there's a lot of little fun pieces of information in the story.
I can't wait to see it. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us. This has been a historic year for women in the U.S. From the midterm election to the Me Too movement, women's voices are being heard like never before. Carrie Lazarus takes us to the place where America recognizes its extraordinary women.
I'm Carrie Lazarus in Seneca Falls. It was in this tiny upstate New York town back in 1848 that the women's rights movement got started. Today, it's home to the National Women's Hall of Fame.
Victoria Jackson, you are now inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame.
This is the 50th anniversary of the Hall, honoring American women for their enduring contributions to the nation and the world.
RBG. RBG, the notorious. And she embraces that.
Yeah, she certainly does. There are 276 women on these walls.
Edith Wharton. I love her books. And
authors, astronauts, actresses, athletes, and of course, the suffragists. Many are world famous.
I think she's local.
Some you've never heard of.
And that's the beauty when people come to the hall and they look around and they ask themselves, why don't I know about this person? Why don't I know who invented pediatric cardiac surgery techniques? You know, that kind of question.
Oh, that's cool. There are artifacts, the program from Billie Jean King's match with Bobby Riggs. This outfit donated by Amelia Earhart's family. The torch carried from Seneca Falls to a women's march in Texas.
There was one of two of them. The other one's at the Smithsonian.
And many items are in storage because the hall has outgrown its space. But that's about to change. The old Seneca Knitting Mill, 4 times the size of the current hall, will be the new Women's Hall of Fame.
I mean, this is challenging, such an old building.
Built when the women's rights movement was born, it's being turned into a world-class showplace for the history of American women.
Even our small little hall is inspiring, and this will be so much better.
It's here on the 3rd floor that the past and the present really come together. Visitors can look over the water and see the Wesleyan Chapel, the site of the Women's Rights Convention in 1848.
Your company built skyscrapers and sports stadiums. What is it about this project in Little Seneca Falls?
There's nothing little about this project. This is a special project that will leave a community stronger and better, and leave a history and honor women that have done incredible things.
Because it's really taking shape. The new Hall of Fame is being built in phases. Organizers are fundraising one floor at a time. The first phase of the project will be completed in September, just in time for the induction of this year's class. At the future home of the National Women's Hall of Fame in Seneca Falls, I'm Carrie Lazarus.
And remember to catch our Celebrating Women special this Friday on KELO TV as we feature South Dakota women who are making their mark on the world. We'll show you how women are influencing politics, athletics, agriculture, and law enforcement. You can catch the Celebrating Women special on Friday, March 8th at 6:30 p.m. We're right back after this. Earlier in the show, we talked with the Summit League as they prepare for this week's basketball tournament. But that's not the only basketball championship taking place in Sioux Falls this month. The Sanford Pentagon is in the middle of the NSIC tournament, hosting 46 games in just 12 days. Don Jorgensen got a behind-the-scenes look ahead of the tournament.
Well, we're ready for it, and it certainly is madness for us out here.
Jesse Smith, the Director of Operations at the Sanford Sports Complex, says preparing for 46 games in 12 days has been a lot of work.
So once the games get going, once the ball's in the air and we're tipped off, they kind of run themselves, and so really the work and the preparation is all on the front end.
We keep joking in the office that we're studying, we're just ready to take the test.
As Director of the Sports Authority, it's Thomas Lee's job to bring these games to Sioux Falls.
The staff out here at the Sanford Pentagon say the game of basketball out here doesn't change, but behind the scenes, it's a whole different ball game.
That's because they have to transition from pro basketball to college basketball.
They all have different layouts, and so some of the seating arrangements are different. Some of the hospitality areas, the behind-the-scenes areas are different. A few little tweaks in the locker rooms.
But there's one thing they have no control over.
For us, one of the unknowns is the weather. You never can tell if we're going to have a storm to deal with.
When it's over, it's just going to come to a screeching halt. So it'll be quiet. It'll be noisy for quite a while, and then it'll just get quiet.
That was Don Jorgensen reporting. The NSIC tournament continues Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning, the NAIA Division II men's tournament tips off. For a complete listing of game times and matchups, log on to KELOLAND.com. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. For more information on today's topics, head to KELOLAND.com. Join us every Sunday following the 10 o'clock news right here on KELO TV. Have a great night, everyone. Coming up on this week's Inside KELOLAND, we're previewing the upcoming Summit League basketball tournament, and we get an update on the Levitt at the Falls project in downtown Sioux Falls. That's all coming up Sunday after the late local news.